Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2023 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt custom fit vehicle wiring kit. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, we'll check this setup out and make sure it's going to be right for you. So this will be a good option for those of you who ended up getting a 4xe and it didn't come equipped with a factory tow package. So you're able to equip your Jeep with a hitch and then set it up with the wiring kit. What this is going to do is allow you to hook up to your trailer. So if your trailer has a connector on it that looks similar to this, it's a 4-way flat, really common. You'll be able to plug right in, and then it's going to send all the lighting functions to the back of your trailer. So you'll get your brake lights, your turn signals, and your running lights. As far as mounting up the connector, it's really just going to depend on your hitch. So in our case, we have a Draw-Tite hitch installed on our Jeep, and it comes with a bracket already attached to it. So I was just able to use a zip tie to secure the connector there. With this Draw-Tite one too, you could always pick up a 4-way flat bracket, attach it to the bracket on the hitch, and put your 4-way connector through that opening. Either way is just fine. For those of you that don't have a bracket on your trailer hitch, you do a couple of different things. You can always just use the dust cover and wrap it around your safety chain openings and secure it that way. Or if you wanted it more permanent, you could always use what's called the no drill long bracket, which clamps to the hitch. Or I've always I've done in the past use this and secure it to the bumper. A lot of different options as far as getting this secured goes. To compare this Curt kit to the other wiring available, here I have the Takancha on hand, and they're pretty much on par with each other. They're both going to get the job done just fine and work and everything. Personally, I've kind of liked the feel of the Takancha kit a little bit better, but that's just me. That's my opinion. If there's one thing that I had to change about the Curt kit, it'd be the length of wire. So the way these wiring kits work is they plug into the back of your taillight, right? The Curt and the Takancha. And one of the connectors will have to get routed from the driver's side over to the passenger side. And with the Curt setup, the wire length that they give you is just long enough to make it over there, at least how I set these up. It'll reach and everything, but you have to be conscious of that, and really make sure you take the shortest path over there to get them to plug in. As to where the Takancha, I held them up side by side. The Takancha kit, it looks like you get at least an extra foot or so of wiring. So it actually makes, a big difference when it comes to, getting it over there, not having to be so careful and really kind of stretch your wire out. But, ultimately the Curt still reaches just fine and everything. Just something that I thought was worth noting. When it comes to the installation, it's not bad, being that they do plug into the tail lights. Everything's pretty open in the Jeep. Most time-consuming part is probably just routing your power wire. So you got to get a power wire from the back up to the front. That way you can hook it up to the battery. So that takes a little bit of time, but the Jeeps are pretty open. I just route ours through the frame. One thing, if you're going to set it up like we have here today, I'd probably recommend picking up some wire loom, maybe 4 or 5 foot of it, and that's because we go around some metal parts and stuff. It's just good to have an extra layer of protection around your wiring, but this is something a lot of people shouldn't really have too many issues being able to do at home. If this is something you're not comfortable messing with or don't have the time or place to work on it, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can do something like this for you. But if this is something you're going to tackle, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be at the back of our Jeep, and we're going to need to remove our taillights. And so in order to do that, if you open up your rear door, that'll allow us to get access to a small panel right here in this area. Here's that panel, and you can just pop that off. I have a trim tool. You can also use a little flathead screwdriver. But that'll be removed. And then inside of there, there's going to be a fastener. It's going to have a 10mm head. You want to be kind of holding your tail light too, because this is the only thing holding it in. So loosen that up. Then you can pull this out. You're able to just grab the taillight now, pull straight back on it, and we're going to disconnect the electrical here. So you're going to have a little red tab, pull up on it, and you can push down on the tab. That'll release the connector. We'll set our light off to the side and do the same thing to get the passenger side one removed. We'll take our trailer wiring now, and you want to take the 4-way flat end and then the T connector that has the green wire going to it. And we're just going to drop these down kind of behind our tail light here. And just feed them through to the bottom side of our vehicle. And then if we take the other T connector, has a yellow and brown wire, this one is going to plug into our factory wiring, like that. And for the time being, we're going to leave this unplugged, but eventually it will go into our taillight. We can get our power wire hooked up now, so you have this black wire coming right out of the box, and that end is already pre-stripped. And this is how we're going to make our connections, whether it be a butt connector or a ring terminal. You take the butt connector, put it over the bare end of the wire, and crimp it down. Now I chose to upgrade to these heat shrink style butt connectors. The ends will seal up and do a better job of protecting against corrosion and things like that. However, the ones that come with the kit will work just fine. Just make sure you tape them up real good once your connection is made. But what you're going to do now, or what you're going to hook to this, they'll give you a big bundle of this thick power wire here. You want to strip the end back, and twist that wire, and then that'll get plugged in to the other side of the butt connector and get crimped down. We can come back with our heat gun and seal up the ends. I came back and used some electrical tape over that connection there for a little extra protection. And then you can take the big bundle of wire and drop that down to the underside of the Jeep as well, just like we did with our 4-way flat and our green T connector wire. We can grab this white wire now. It's going to have a pre-attached ring terminal, and that's going to be our ground. And so I'm just going to connect it to this clean piece of metal here using the provided self-tapping screw. To mount up the converter box, what I'm going to do is use the 2-sided sticky tape. So I cleaned off the surface with some rubbing alcohol, just let it dry, and then I'm going to pop this on here. And how I'm going to mount this, our wiring is going to kind of go up and over a little piece of metal. You know, it's not terrible by any means, but just for a little extra protection, I grabbed maybe 1.5 feet of this wire loom here. I'm just going to put it over this portion. That way, if it does happen to shift on us, or we hit a bump or something and it touches that metal, it's not gonna wear out over time. So I'll slide this on, and I'm gonna mount this kind of down in our taillight pocket. So I'll go ahead and do that and show you how it turned out. Here's where I placed our converter box, and whatever surface you choose to stick it to, make sure that is also clean and dry as well. With everything all sorted here on the driver's side, we can now grab our taillight. We'll plug that final connector in, lock the tab down, and then we'll just reinstall our light the opposite way that we removed it. Underneath of our Jeep, we can route our 4-way flat wiring as well as the green T connector. So bear with me here, it's a little hard to see just because the nature of this, but I took them and ran them kind of up and over on top of this beam here. All right, and I just use zip ties along the way. You know, do your best to avoid as much heat as you can from the muffler. I ran it over, and then I dropped our 4-way flat down here and just secured it to the hitch using a zip tie. I put a little wire loom on it as well, kind of clean up the install look. And our green T connector is going to continue along. And when you're routing this, keep in mind this wire looks like it's going to be just long enough to reach. So, you know, think about that. You don't want to fall short. If you do, you can always extend it, or maybe change your mounting position on your control box or on the converter box there that we put in the tail light. Might buy you a couple more inches, but that said, it comes up, runs along, and I just took the connector, and if you kind of reach up in through that opening, you can push it into the tail light pocket just like we did on our driver's side. On our passenger side tail light pocket, this is where I have the wiring coming up through that little hole there, and I put some wire loom on it too, so don't rub on that metal. And it's definitely tight, for sure, but it works the same way. One end plugs into the factory wiring, and then what I'm going to do on our tail light, this harness is just kind of snapped into this piece, and by undoing it, that gives you, you know, several more inches to work with. That'll make it a little easier to get plugged in. So that's how it'll be set up, and then we can get the light reinstalled. Moving back underneath, we can get our power wire routed now. And so what I did is, again, put a little piece of loom on it, and that's because I ran it into our frame rail. And since the battery is on the passenger side, you can either run it straight up this way and then over once you get into the engine compartment. I just chose to go through the frame, through this part. So you can kind of see a little piece of it every now and again. It runs all the way through and continues in the frame rail. So I'll just continue to run straight all the way up to the front. Here's where that wire continues, and every now and again where we had these openings, you know, I tried to grab the wire and put a zip tie on it, which is all the way forward. And if you're having a hard time, you know, feeding this through the frame, what I did, you know, if I run into that, is use what's called the fish wire. This is just a piece of nylon air tubing, and it makes things a lot easier. You can actually pick this stuff up here at etrailer. It really comes in handy for a lot of different projects. But I don't know, this might be 5 or 6 foot of it, but what you can do, you can take this, kind of bend it as needed and run it through right, and then you can tape your wire into it and kind of feed it into position and just, you know, continue to work your way down until that next opening that you can get to. So that's always something you can do. Or you can take a metal coat hanger and straighten it out. Something like that would probably work as well. But coming up right through here, and then that hole there where that wire loom is, that's where the wire comes out. All right, and I just took it and pushed it straight up into the engine compartment. Here's where our wiring comes up into the engine compartment, and since this will go to the positive battery terminal, I cut our power wire to length. There's only maybe a foot or two to spare, and used a butt connector to pair that up to the included fuse holder. And on the other end of the fuse holder, crimped on a ring terminal. And you want to wait to install the fuse until after this is hooked up. And on our positive post here, it seems like with these Jeeps, you know, I do a lot of these, and some of them will have, they all have, from my experience, these 3 attachment points here. Some of them will have, you know, nuts on these 2 posts. Ours has this one here, but not there. And then some of them will have nothing. It doesn't really matter which one you use. I just like to use the one that's not being utilized, right? So that's what I'm gonna go with. If you don't have nuts on these, you can always remove this one and use it to accomplish the same thing. But with our setup, this nut is a 10 millimeter. Go ahead and pull that off. Take a ring terminal, put it over it. Make sure I got this set how I want it to here. Probably do something like this. Get this tightened back down. Now we can install the fuse. And I'm going to come back with a little electrical tape as well and tape up this connection just like we did at the back. With everything hooked up, it's a good idea to test the wiring to make sure that it's working properly. I like to use a tester like this as opposed to just hooking up to a trailer. And I say because if the trailer happens to have any issues, it could mislead you, you know, and thinking it's something you did on the Jeep side. With that in mind though, we'll try our left turn, our right turn. We'll hit our brakes and try out our running lights. Once you've tested everything and see that it's working, that'll do it for your install of the Curt custom fit wiring kit on our 2023 Jeep Wrangler 4xe.